Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm recording this video on date 6th June 2026, and today's topic for discussion would be on the philosophical divide between GNU, uh, understanding GNU, open source and free software. Before we even deep dive into the Linux concepts, it is very important to understand on what was the philosophical understanding between the free software and open source and why the GNU came into the existence. This is the GitHub repository that's called Linux Concepts under my GitHub account, which I continuously post the Linux concepts articles or concepts that I am trying to explain in this YouTube channel. So I would quickly explain the navigation. You would also have the link to this repository in the video description. But if anybody are new onto this repository, Linux concepts, you can simply come to the repository main readme.md file. You can scroll down to the project structure where you would actually understand in a brief explanation on what each folder does. And here under the technical modules, you can click on the foundations of Linux. This is a starting point for anyone who wants to start reading on the Linux concepts, or all the concepts that I explain in this YouTube videos are would be lying under the modules. I would be updating from time to time, so there will be updates being posted on every weekend to this repositories. So anyone who are new to this repository can start from foundations on Linux, which will take you to the first concept that we are or topic that we are going to discuss in this video, which is the philosophical divide between understanding the GNU free software and open source. So I also had my own website, which is called avidfleck.in. So I would be explaining Ansible, DevOps, and cloud computing and other infrastructure tools in future. But as of now, user can come to my website, Linux Concepts, click on Linux Concepts, and click on the first article. So the content is same. One is that the people who are comfortable on reading in the GitHub in code format or in the GitHub repository readme files, so people can read it here. In case if somebody are comfortable in reading it as an block format, then you can come onto the website and read. So both would have the same content. There would be no difference. And I also gave the link to the website in my GitHub post, and I also provided vice versa the GitHub link in my website blog, so people can switch between them based on their comfort. So the terms free software and open source are used so interchangeably today that their profound and foundational differences are often being lost. If you use Linux, Android phone, or any internet services or IoT devices, are basically the outcome of this philosophical split. Understanding the debate between the free software and open source is very crucial, as it fundamentally dictates who controls the technology that you are relying on, whether the user had the overall control of the end product, or is it whether the corporate companies that wrote the code had the overall control of the software product that you are using. At its core, the debate is about the user control. The free software ideology is being promoted and championed by the Free Software Foundation, where it mainly focuses on the user liberty, and open source is promoted by the Open Source Initiative, is a development model focused heavily on practical benefits like collaboration and stability, where multiple people can collaborate to the collaborate in developing the same product and fixing the bugs quickly and delivering a stable product way faster than their competitors. So there is some difference between both had their own ideologies and differences, but the code is same, but their goals could not be more distinct. So knowing which model you support impacts the future of the digital freedom. Now let us understand how did the GNU project start. The GNU project has been started and the Free Software Foundation has been initiated by Richard Stallman in the earliest 1970s and 1980s at MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab. The reason behind Stallman initiating these projects is that he felt his freedom is being violated, and let us understand why and how. To understand this, we have to understand a small Xerox story which has happened with Stallman. So Xerox is a American company that manufactures digital printers. So back in time, Xerox had donated an laser printer to MIT, and it was fast and it was getting jammed frequently. Whenever it gets jammed, uh, everyone's print jobs were being stuck. I mean, nobody were knowing that the printer has got stuck until they walked into the printer room. Uh, so before the Xerox has donated the printer, there were some older printers as well at MIT, um, where even they were also getting jammed, like the one the Xerox has donated. Uh, but Richard Stallman had access to the old printer's software, so he has modified the old software's printer code so that whenever it gets jammed, uh, the printer can send a message to everybody's computer that the printer is being jammed and please fix it. So this was kind of an early DevOps automation that Richard Stallman has did, notifying to everyone that the printer has jammed. So this used to happen on the old printers, but after the Xerox has donated its printer to the MIT, Stallman did not have access to the source code and he was not able to modify the code so that users can be notified on the message. So Stallman has felt first time in his career that he's being stuck with a software that he is not able to modify. Uh, and Xerox printer software is a proprietary software, so the code was logged. Nobody had access to the source code. So he asked his fellow scientist in another university who had the copy of the code, and the scientist has refused to share the source code because he signed an non-disclosure agreement with the Xerox. So we can understand clearly that Richard Stallman felt violation in the freedom in modifying the source code, which means the user did not have any control over the source code or the software. It was the Xerox organization that had control over the printer's software. So somewhere Richard Stallman felt that this is not the way the future is going to be. Like the huge corporations should not be controlling the user liberty. It is the user that needs to have control over the product. So user should have access to the source code. User should be able to modify the source code as per his own needs. So this being restricted, and Richard Stallman started the GNU project initiative, and he has founded the Free Software Foundation organization. Now let us understand on the GNU philosophy and the four essential freedoms. In 1983, Richard Stallman at MIT has started the GNU project. GNU is a recursive acronym of GNU, not Unix. His intention was to create a completely free operating system that has respected the user rights. And there are four essential freedoms that are being considered. The freedom zero, is run, where the user has a freedom to run the software for any purpose, which means the user can run the same software for any commercial purpose or is for his own personal needs. So there won't be any restriction on the purpose that a user is running that software. And freedom one is study and change. The freedom to study how the software works, having access to the source code, understanding how the application is working, how the internals are being, the business logic is being written, and modifying it as per the user needs. And freedom two is redistribute. So a user can redistribute the copy of a software to his neighbor, and there shouldn't be any restriction in that. And freedom three is distribute modified versions. The freedom to distribute the modified copy, which means like the scenario that we have seen with the Xerox, where the on the old printer source code, where the Richard Stallman was modifying the printer software in order to send a message to the user. So he kind of had the access to the code. He was able to modify the source code and as per his own needs, and he was also having freedom to redistribute the old printer software with a notification being sent to the user with other university people as well. So he was not having any restriction. So these outline the basic freedoms that Richard Stallman considers to be followed for a software to be free. Let us understand the term free in terms of free software. So free had two different contexts. Here in free software, free in the sense it is free as in speech, which mainly surrounding the user liberty, and not price as in free beer, which means you can be charged for a software some amount of money, but then still the software source code can be available to the public, which will eventually bring the price of that software down to zero. So here the philosophical weight is surrounding the user rights and not in terms of money. In English, basically free in the sense it is something is freely available, right? But in context of free software, the free is kind of confusing a bit, and it has two different meanings. So let us understand the context of free as in free beer. So when someone says the free beer at the party, which means you are not being charged, and basically it means you don't have to pay for it, and you can have the beer for the free. And only restriction is that you cannot ask for the recipe. So you don't own the recipe, and you cannot ask for the recipe as well, even so that you will not be able to modify your own recipe of the beer and start selling of your own version of that beer. So this is like a freeware. For example, like Adobe Reader and Google Chrome, these softwares are free to download, but then you would not have access to the source code. So source code is a secret, so you are just a user of these softwares. And now let us understand free as in context of free speech, which is liberty. So when we talked about free speech, so here we are not talking about money. We are talking about the user rights and freedom. So as I mean, you have the right to say what you want. You had a right to express, and the user had control over their own expression. So in technical terms, the free software GNU means that even if you paid $100 for a software, it is still free because you own the source code. You can open it, see how it works. You can modify and share the modified version to the world again. Next, let us understand the mechanism of freedom, copyleft versus permissive licenses. The most famous example is the GNU's GPL, General Public License. So GPL is a contractual mechanism that uses copyright law against itself. It means that if you receive a code under the GPL, you can modify it and redistribute the modified version, but only restriction is that the modified version of the software should also be licensed under the GPL. So this made sure the essential freedoms are being transferred to every user who is going to modify the same software in future. So it's kind of a share and share alike principle, which is designed to protect the software from getting proprietary locking of the code. Let us understand the birth of open source, pragmatism, or philosophy. In 1998, as the free software initiative has got huge technical success, a group of developers felt the free software term is kind of confusing and misleading to the businesses. So businesses mistook it as a product being non-commercial. But as we read earlier, though the source code is available and you know user is allowed to modify the source code and redistribute it, still the product can be commercially charged. Okay, that means, which means you are being charged, but you can still modify the code, so which is not completely non-commercial. So the group of developers have came up with a new initiative, which is open source initiative, which is termed as a open source software. So this open source initiative mainly focuses on the practical benefits instead of the user rights, which means more eyes on the code, which means that would eventually lead to faster fixing of the bugs, and anyone can contribute, which would eventually lead to speeding of the development, and no vendor lock-in or no licensing fees. So while the OSI's definition ensures that source code is available and allows modification by multiple users, still its licenses are often permissive, like the MIT or Apache license. So these licenses allows proprietary project to utilize the source code, open source code, without being forced them to release their own modification. So Free Software Foundation prioritizes user rights where the user had a liberty, and there are some example tools like the Linux kernel and the C compiler, which are registered under the GPL license of GNU Project. And OSI prioritizes the flexibility and adoption for developers and businesses, example Reactive and many cloud tools. So now let us understand a bit more on the GNU Linux legacy and the model challenges that we are facing. The success of free and open source software initiatives is undeniable. There are many products that are registered under the GNU GPL license, like the Bash shell, C compiler, and the core utilities, and also the Linux kernel, which is created by Linux Torvald. So all these softwares are being registered under the GNU's GPL license, which have collectively created a GNU Linux operating system, and this is the world's most critical infrastructure runs on this operating system. So today, however, in the digital landscape that we see, none of the freedoms are being applied. One of the use case is the software as a service. So in software as a service, the user would be able to run the software only through the browser, and the actual code executes on the company's private servers. For example, the SAS and Google Docs. So user did not have access to the source code. So none of the four freedoms also apply to it. So this software as a service trend actually bypasses the open source license and GPL license. Now let us understand if the philosophy still matters even to date. So choosing between the free software which comes with a GPL license, or whether you choose an open source initiative which comes with a permissive license. Uh, so the kind of products that you build and the kind of licenses that you attach to the products usually shapes the future of the technology, whether the user is going to have all the control on the technology, or whether is it the code writers. And remember one thing, whatever the technology that you use or any device that you use, always remember the GNU philosophy is about the user having control over the technology and the source code, and not the code writers or the corporations. So So I feel it's a conscious decision that needs to be taken while building the products and new softwares and bringing new solutions into the in solving the real world problems. Uh, uh, I would say to support the free software under the GPL license, which where the product can be reused, remodified, redistributed, and shared to other users, and it can be continually improved. Thanks for watching my video. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And please do comment. Help me with your feedback. Post any questions you have. That would really help me in interacting with people who are interested in DevOps.